G'day guys, Wes Zandt here from the Down Under Centre. I'm joined by Mark Henniker, one of our Carpenter Assessors. So Mark, welcome to this little video, buddy.
Thank you, mate. It's nice to be here.
And cheers for taking the time. I know we've got our backgrounds in the background, but it's not what we look like or our backgrounds today. It's a bit about running through what's involved in the skills assessments for carpenters. So this is an area that we've been involved with in a long time, especially yourself. You've got 20 years background assessing migrant carpenters. So thought we'd throw this video together to give people a bit of an idea of what's involved and how the Carpentry Skills Assessment works. So a Carpentry Skills Assessment is designed to assess carpenters for the purpose of migration. It's broken into two stages. You've got the first part is what we call as a documentary assessment, which is paper-based. I always feel that's the hardest part of the process. You need to prove on paper you've got the necessary skills. To be eligible for the skills assessment, you need to hold a relevant qualification, which would be like equivalent to an NVQ level 3 if you're from the UK. And minimum of 3 years experience. Now that can be so you could have finished your NVQ level 3 and have 3 years of experience you can prove financially, then you are eligible for the skills assessment. So it's not after the qualification. If you've never done a qualification, guys, don't stress, you can do it. We just need to see 5 years of full-time paid work experience. If you're in Australia, for example, or outside of Australia, you don't have a qualification, you're looking to do your skills assessment with Australia Trade Training College and the Down Under Centre, then you can opt to gain your AQF3, your Australian qualification, by a recognition of prior learning. Then you only need the 3 years, and then you become what we call as a pathway 2. So would it be fair to say, Mark, that do you feel the hardest part of the process getting all the documents gathered?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a case of having to contact all your previous employers, and in the construction industry, it's notoriously transient. So finding those employers, contractors have moved on, you subcontract into one company, that's a different name than the other company. I've been there. I understand that it's not like working at one stationary place. It's a very transient industry. So that is the hardest part of it, tracking down who you was working for and then getting the evidence for that. That is what people find most challenging.
Yeah, especially if you have been, you've always worked for yourself as well. Obviously, then you're not you are self-employed, but you're owner of a company rather than a subcontractor. Mm-hmm. So, Mark, we know that completion of the skills assessment, the migrant will receive their full Australian qualification, Certificate 3 in carpentry, which holds lots of value, but also the document you need for the visa. So, depending on the passport, anyone who's looking to apply for a skilled independent visa, or anyone who is a partner of a main applicant that wants to, if you're on the right list, you've got to be on the same list. If you would like to generate 5 extra points for the visa, then you can also do a skills assessment too. But the skills assessment is mandatory for a skilled visa. And depending on the passport you hold, it might be mandatory for the 482 or one of the employer-sponsored visas. Guys, please note this has been recorded on the 1st of the 5th, 2025 as well. So we have 2 pathways, Mark. We've got pathway 1 and pathway 2. So pathway 1 would be the migrant having to gather all the documentation, as I mentioned earlier, 3 years with a relevant qualification, 5 years without.
Yeah.
And the technical interview will be done with yourself or another assessor from our business. And the pathway 2 means you hold the Australian qualification. So the main difference between pathway 1 and pathway 2 is holding the Australian qualification. Guys, if you've got the 5 years, my advice would be don't waste money, and you don't have to spend money on doing the RPL, because the actual TRA fees at the moment for the skills assessment is 1,120 Australian dollars to get your paperwork marked. And then if you're a pathway 1 client, the technical interview is $2,000. If you're a pathway 2, it's $900. Just reminding you guys that pathway 2 means you hold the Australian qualification. But as we know, Mark, to get the RPL, to get that Australian qualification would be, a lot more than $2,000, more sort of the $2,500 to $3,500 for that. Yeah. So the $900 or the $1,100 difference in the technical interview fee paid to TRA compared to the $3,000 usually, Mark. So please don't rush off and do that.
No, I agree. Pathway 2, if you think about it, pathway 2 is 2 processes. So you need to go and get your Australian qual off another independent RTO. Then you need to go through a registered organisation and go through another process. So obviously 2 sets of fees. So it's much more expensive. And a lot of people I interview on a pathway 2 aren't aware they could have just gone for pathway 1 because maybe
Correct.
they clicked on a link and they didn't understand the full process and they've ended up paying double.
Or I find, Mark, the biggest error would be that they're looking at going skills assessment. So a normal RTO, registered training organisation, will say, here's a carpentry skills assessment. But again, it's got to be TRA approved, which Australia Trade Training College are. So, all right. So we've gone through the process. So the first part, documentary assessment, we always find that's the hardest part. Now, for our clients that use us, we provide a portal to make life a lot easier, where Mark and a client manager will be on the back of that portal, running through it and guiding you through the process. And where we're using the portal, you're also gathering the documentation you need for the visa. So when you have a consultation with the DUC, our team will run through how the portal and the services we have work. But this is all about the carpentry side. That's why you're here today, mate. So when assessing carpenters, what advice would you give?
Well, I give that advice on an initial consultation. So when I get a client through the portal, I offer every client a 15-minute phone consultation because everybody's different. And the construction industry and carpentry varies from, you could be building a bridge, you could be doing formwork, you could be out building houses, you could be doing renovations. It's so wide and varied. There is no one size fits all answer. So I like to offer that consultation. And during that consultation, I'll ask these questions. What qualifications have you got? What experience have you got? What work have you been doing? What work are you going to be doing in the future? Once I've got all that information, then I can say, okay, now this is what I need you to provide on the portal. And I'll run through the documents and whatever other photos and videos that they have got the opportunity to provide in the timescale in the next few months, because they're not going to have the opportunity to provide all of the competencies that are contained within the qualification, because there's a lot there. So I tailor it and I say, well, this is what we need, this is what you're doing. The evidence that we can't get through the portal, I'll then tailor an individual assessment plan, and that's what I'll focus on during the interview. So the client will know, okay, I've not been able to do an Australian wall frame, obviously, because I'm in the UK. So I'll say, oh, that's fine. I've need of this resource. You can just brush up on the knowledge, get ready for the interview. It's not like a closed book exam where I'm going to ask lots of really technical questions. It's about knowing about the principles and the techniques that are involved and where to find the information. So the client will know exactly what they're going to be questioned on during the interview. So, for example, if they're going to be hanging doors, skirting boards, architraves and fitting kitchens for the next 3 months, they can show me evidence of that. During the technical interview, am I really going to go deep into those areas? Because they've already provided the evidence. So every assessment is individually tailored, and I do an individual assessment plan to make it more streamlined and not put barriers in the way. That's not what the assessment should be. It's an RPL process. They're coming out with an Australian qualification as well as a migration letter. And for an RPL process, we are required by the Australian qualification framework to recognise prior learning in whatever form that is. Could be a qualification, could be work history, could be an extension you built on your own house, which is a lot of the cases in the UK. We like to build extensions, carpenters. So I can use that as evidence. Whatever they've got in the past, that can be used. Whatever we need to get evidence for in the future, that's what we can focus on more in the interview. But that won't be a big shock and a big surprise. All the information's out there. So by the time the client comes to the interview, they know exactly what they're going to be questioned on. There won't be any surprises.
Well said, Mark. Guys, we're not here to make your life harder. We're here to make it easier. And as Mark mentioned, you may not be doing so. You might be on a job for a couple of months where we can go back, and it's recognition of prior learning. It is an RPL sort of framework that immigration wants us to do on behalf of the skills assessment. So it's really good to throw this little, these little videos together and to help. And for our clients, we put all of our clients in a private Facebook group as well, which definitely supports them through it. Because Mark, we've just done a podcast together, and where you go into a lot of detail as well. And the emotional side of migration is hard, and I guess there's lots of rumours that come with through the skills assessment process. But what would be asked during the technical interview, mate?
What would be asked would be What I would do is focus on the parts that we've not got the evidence for. So if somebody's gone through an MVQ2 or an MVQ3, I know that they've done X, Y, Z, A, B, C. But what they've not done maybe is the Australian context. And
Yeah.
they'll know that. That'll be the Australian wall framing. So I'll just put up a plan on the screen and I'll say, okay, here's a plan of a typical house. It's a simple floor plan. Have a look at it. And I'll paint the picture. I'll say, okay, so if you were a carpenter, you've come on site today, you've got a few packs of timber, you've got the plan in front of you. Okay, what tools and equipment would you need, firstly, to do this job? How would you get set up? How would you set up the work area? Okay, now you've got your work area set up. Tell me about the first step in the process. What would I see you doing if I was there watching? How would you do the setting out? And I'll talk through the logical steps in the process rather than asking technical, detailed questions that you would need 512 gigabytes of RAM to access. That's not what it's about. It's about gathering evidence to justify or validate that somebody can actually take those logical steps in the process to construct the wall frames in this example, or the roof, whatever it might be. So that's the approach I take. It's like a scenario-based question, but the client will know which scenarios they'll be questioned on beforehand.
Yeah, perfect. And if you are strong with your documentary assessment, which is what our portal provides, then that is going to assist with with making the technical interview a bit easier. Mark, who's involved in the technical interview? You've got the migrant, the assessor, and who else is involved?
Or we have an invigilator who's a third pair of independent eyes, and their role is to just ensure that the client is alone and not accessing a mobile device to get the answers off or things of that nature. So it's just to make sure it's fair and it's a quality process to make sure it's fair from the assessor as well. So it's an independent pair of eyes that is there to monitor the process. Basically is what it is. So they just sit in the background. They'll come back into the interview every 20 minutes, have a look around the room with the camera, make sure nothing's changed, and then back on with the interview. So they don't take an active role during the interview.
Yep.
They're there at the beginning, they're there in the background, they're there at the end. And obviously there's a few little gremlins that might come along with the technical side that we can get the invigilator to help out with that as well, which happens.
Yeah, perfect. And how long would a technical interview generally take? For, I guess they're different. So let's look at for a pathway one. So someone who hasn't got the Australian qualification, how long would a technical interview generally take?
Well, that depends. Again, I tailor the assessment for each individual client. So if a client has provided lots and lots of evidence, they've got an MVQ level 3, and they've got all these great, fantastic photos and videos that they've sent, it wouldn't be as long as it would be otherwise. So that might only take an hour. And part of that process might be I'll show the pictures on the screen and I'll say, oh, this was the process you went through. Just quickly tell me how you've done that. And as a carpenter, I know the language and the lingo, and I can pick up pretty quickly and validate the information that's been sent in. So we can't just set things on face value. We need to validate the evidence as part of the assessment process. But then if there's very little for me to go on, then that's when it would take longer. So the more evidence I've got up front that just needs validating, the less I need to question and dig a bit deeper into other areas. So an hour or longer, I would say, is the answer to that question.
And then
With pathway two, with pathway two, again, it depends on what work the applicant is doing, and it also depends on communication between the assessor and the client as well. If we've got a good dialogue and we're talking quite quickly, it sounds strange, but it goes a lot quicker. So it depends on communication skills all around. But I would say roughly between half an hour and an hour for pathway two, and that's more to validate that you are a carpenter working in the industry, and it's what we might call employability skills. So it's things like following policies and procedures, reading plans, health and safety obviously is a big one, teamwork, communication, all the skills surrounding. So not too much in detail about the trade itself, more about the employability and workplace skills surrounding it. And we'll touch on some carpentry just to validate that as well.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things is obviously to, if you are if you're watching this and you're about to do your technical interview, relax. There's time in between. You don't have to come out straight away with a quick answer. You've got time to think about it, take it in, and I'm sure, Mark, if there's a communication breakdown, you spoke about languages, and obviously we communicate quite well. We've known each other for a while, I guess, so that helps.
Yeah.
But there is a time where someone you'll be working with that migrant to sort of assist with getting the wording out from them as well. Correct? You do work with them like that.
Yes, no, you're quite right. I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's not just from the UK. So we do, as you know, so I'll just run through the countries. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody from Denmark,
Yep.
Ireland, Bangladesh. This isn't just yesterday, but in the past, let's just say the past 4 or 6 weeks, Denmark, Ireland, England, Bangladesh, South Africa, the Philippines, America, Canada, Scotland. And it's not just the language. Every country has their own construction lingo as well. So I've picked up on that over the years as well. And I understand that not everything is called the same name in different countries. But I'm quite adept, I feel, at picking up the local terminology, the colloquialisms, can we say. And yeah, I never rush an answer. It's not like a game show. This is the question. You've got 3 seconds to answer. It's more of a technical conversation. Yeah. So it's about the work that the applicant has done in the past, and it's about me getting the information out in a way that is comfortable, of me validating that they've got those skills. So yeah, it can be quite an enjoyable experience. It's not as stressful as people think. It's not a pleasant situation to be in.
If you're a carpenter, you'll be fine. That's the thing, isn't it? If you're a carpenter, this is your job. You've got the ability and the skills to draw the information out.
Exactly.
But it's assistance. One of the biggest questions we get, obviously, this is life changing for people in the skills assessments. The major part of a visa process. How would people prepare for the technical interview?
It would be a question of acknowledging that things are different in Australia. You're being assessed for an Australian qualification, so we assess to the Australian way of doing things. Yep. So to prepare, I mean, it's great now. I mean, I'm going to show my age, but back in the day when I was a young lad, I'd have to go to the library, find a book, put the book out, read it, and remember it. Now we've got the library, we've got the brilliant resource of YouTube. So you can go on YouTube, and it was new to me. I only learned that there were carpentry influencers out there now.
There you go.
There you go. I never knew that. But there are lots of resources online, and we can point you in the direction of those resources. That's not a problem. We can't teach you because we're an assessment on the authority. But we can alert you to the resources you need to prepare for the interview.
And you've got your self-assessment questionnaire, which is highly recommend you view. Submitting, going over the documentation that you've submitted as well.
Yes.
And then really understanding the process about how it happens. But what would you say would be the two things? So before someone does a technical interview, self-assessment questionnaire, view the information provided. If you're unsure in any areas on the self-assessment questionnaire, maybe then have a bit of a Google, have a bit of a look, follow the trend, I guess, of what people are looking for.
Yep, the self-assessment questionnaire, thank you for picking up on that, is a document where the client can read the questions, and it's broken down into the competencies, and it looks quite onerous. Yep. But that's an opportunity for you to say, well, I know this off the top of my head. Oh, I don't know this. Let me have a look into it. It's tempting to just, these days, Google it and copy and paste the answer in there, which isn't doing yourself any favours. If there's an area that you don't know the answer to, watch a video. Read something. Don't just copy paste answers, because that isn't going to sink in. And when it comes to the interview, there's going to be a disconnect between the self-assessment questionnaire and the knowledge you have. So that's the point of the self-assessment questionnaire, is for you to highlight the gaps. And I'm the same. I was in the UK. I didn't know about the Australian way of doing things until I came here. So I was in that position. And whatever country you're in, we do things differently wherever you are. Construction methods change country to country, but the principles and the techniques should remain the same. It's just a matter of getting up to speed on some of the techniques in Australia, and there's a lot of resources out there.
Yeah, perfect. All right, thank you so much for that, Mark, and good luck with your technical interview, guys, and all the best with it. Take care.
You're most welcome. Been great, Wes.